Most people don't understand the power of keeping things to yourself. We live in a world where it feels normal to share every move you make, what you're working on, what your goals are, and how far along you've come. But the truth is, talking about your plans too early can take energy away from actually doing the work. The more you explain yourself, the more distracted you become. And worse, the more you chase approval, the easier it is to lose focus. If you really want to grow, if you truly want to succeed, then you have to learn how to protect your focus and stop seeking outside permission. This video is about building your strength in silence. It's about how quiet effort creates real progress. It's for anyone who's tired of wasting energy on opinions, tired of performing for likes, and ready to build something solid, something real. We're going to talk about what happens when you stop sharing every detail and start training your mind to work quietly, stay consistent, and rely on discipline rather than validation. There's something powerful that happens when you stop needing people to understand your vision. You free up space to think clearly. You gain time to actually work. You feel more in control. This isn't just motivational talk. It's a daily strategy. You'll hear practical ways to protect your energy, avoid distractions, and build your life with a focus that doesn't depend on being seen. If you've ever felt frustrated with slow progress, if you've struggled with self-doubt, or if you've noticed how draining it is to constantly explain yourself, then this video is for you. Because real success doesn't come from talking, it comes from doing. So if you're ready to stop chasing attention and start building real momentum, stay with this. What you'll hear today isn't just advice. It's a new way of thinking that can change the way you show up for your goals every single day. Chapter 1. Build strong habits quietly without announcing your intentions. Most people never reach their full potential because they give too much attention to how things look instead of how things feel. They care more about being seen starting something than actually finishing it. They talk about what they're working on, what they're going to do, what they plan to achieve, hoping for support, approval, or recognition before they've earned any of it. And in that process, they lose the one thing that creates real results: focus. When you talk about your intentions before they've become your reality, you let the energy escape. You feel a small sense of reward just for saying the words. You get a bit of validation for an idea you haven't yet followed through on. You haven't paid the price, but you already want the applause. That's the problem. That's the trap. Real progress happens when no one is watching. When you're doing something important and nobody knows, that's when the change begins. That's when you start to move differently, think differently, become something more. You don't need to announce your plans. You just need to wake up every day and act in alignment with what matters. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. You just need to show up in silence and build the habits that shape your character. That's where real strength comes from. Not from what you tell the world, but from what you tell yourself in private, when it's hard, when it's quiet, when nobody will ever know. Start your change there. Habits shape everything. Not your goals, not your dreams, not the people cheering you on or doubting you. Your habits are the real foundation of your life. They decide how you think, how you react, how you speak, and what you do when nobody's watching. And the strongest habits are built in silence. Not with announcements, not with big promises to friends, not with public declarations, with quiet consistency, with discipline when it's boring, with small steps repeated over and over, even when the world gives you no credit. People often look for motivation, thinking they need to feel inspired to act. But the truth is, your feelings are not reliable. They change with your mood, your sleep, your environment, your diet. You can't base your life on something so unstable. Habits are different. Habits don't care how you feel. Once built, they become automatic. And when you stop tying your behavior to your emotions, you gain control. You stop waiting for the right moment. You stop asking for permission. You stop needing praise. You simply act again and again until your life changes. The reason you should keep your intentions private is because it helps protect the sacred space where habits are born. It keeps your focus clean. No noise, no distractions, no outside influence. It's just you and the truth of your actions. If you're working hard, you know it. If you're lying to yourself, you know that too. Silence forces honesty. It strips away the performance and demands discipline. That's where growth lives. So if you want to build a better life, start by building better habits, and build them quietly. Start waking up earlier without announcing your new morning routine. Start reading and learning daily without posting about every book. Start eating better, exercising more, meditating, writing, saving money, whatever matters to you, but don't talk about it. Not yet, talk later. Talk through results. Talk through transformation. Let your progress speak so loudly you never have to explain anything. That's what it means to win in public. But first you focus in silence. There's a kind of strength that only comes from doing something difficult and telling no one. When you start a new habit and tell everyone, you risk putting yourself in a position where you're trying to look disciplined instead of becoming disciplined. You become addicted to approval before you've earned accomplishment. And that weakens you. It drains your energy. It shifts your attention from the process to the perception. But when you stay quiet, when you keep your efforts private, all your energy stays inside. It fuels you. It builds pressure. It creates momentum. Eventually that momentum becomes undeniable. This doesn't mean you never share anything. It means you don't start with sharing. You start with action. You start with sacrifice. You build a base that no one can see. And when the time comes to step out, you do it with confidence, not because you said you would, but because you did the work. You lived the discipline. You lived the change. And now it shows. Start with one habit. One thing that matters to you. Something that will strengthen your mind or body or character. Commit to doing it every day for the next 30 days. But don't tell anyone. No posts, no updates, no conversations about your new plan. Just action. Quiet, consistent action. Wake up and do it. No matter how you feel. Do it even when no one cares. Especially then, because that's when it counts. At the end of 30 days, look at yourself. You'll be different. Not because people noticed, but because you did. You'll know you're becoming someone stronger. Someone who follows through. Someone who respects the process. And if you can do it once, you can do it again and again. That's how habits multiply. That's how they build. And that's how you become someone who doesn't need to talk, because their life already says everything. In silence, you learn the value of effort. You stop performing and start improving. You stop waiting and start building. You stop asking for recognition and start earning results. And that changes how you see everything. You become more selective with your words, your time, your energy. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your path. You don't need them to. Your actions are enough. This is not about hiding. It's about protecting what matters. It's about being serious. People who talk too much about their goals often do so because they want approval more than they want growth. They want to be seen as someone disciplined without putting in the time. But real transformation doesn't need an audience. It just needs consistency. And silence makes that easier. When no one knows what you're doing, you're free. Free from judgment. Free from opinions. Free from pressure. You have space to experiment, to fail, to adjust, to improve. And that's exactly what habit building requires. It's messy at first. It takes time. If you're trying to impress people from the beginning, you'll skip the parts that make you stronger. But if you keep things quiet, you'll face the truth. You'll learn discipline. You'll build grit. You'll keep showing up. There's something sacred about waking up before the world and doing your work. No updates. No noise. Just you and the task. Whether it's your morning run, your journaling, your learning, or your quiet work toward a goal, those moments shape you. They build a foundation the world can't take away. That's where your real power comes from. So how do you start? You decide what matters. Not what looks good to others. Not what gets likes or attention. What truly matters to your growth. Then you schedule it. Same time every day. Make it non-negotiable. No debate. No delay. And don't expect it to be easy. Expect it to be necessary. Discipline doesn't mean you enjoy every moment. It means you do it anyway. If you fail one day, don't announce that either. Just correct it. Get back up. No guilt. No self-pity. Just learning. Just returning to the habit. Quietly, repeatedly. Until it becomes part of who you are. You won't need to tell people about your habits once they begin to shape your life. They'll see it. In how you speak. In how you show up. In how you carry yourself. That's what happens when your discipline goes deep. It becomes your identity. And that identity creates your results. Don't look for shortcuts. Don't chase hacks. Build a life on strong habits. Wake up early. Take care of your body. Train your mind. Limit distractions. Protect your attention. Do the work when it's hard. Say no to what weakens you. Say yes to what builds you. And keep it all to yourself until it's real. Until you can't hide it anymore. If you keep doing that day after day, without seeking praise or recognition, you will become someone powerful. Someone who doesn't need applause to know their worth. Someone who doesn't need validation to keep going. Someone who is solid, grounded, and unstoppable. That's what it means to focus in silence and win in public. You earn your strength in private. And when the time comes, you carry it into the world. Quietly, confidently, without needing to explain a thing. Because you did the work. And now you are the work. Chapter 2. Protect your energy by keeping your goals private. Most people don't realize how much energy they lose by talking too much about their goals. Every time you explain what you're planning, every time you go into detail about what you're building, and every time you share your next move before it's made, you leak the power that was meant to drive it. Your focus gets scattered. Your momentum slows. And instead of moving forward with clarity and strength, you now carry the weight of expectations, opinions, and unnecessary pressure. Protecting your energy is about more than resting or staying positive. It's about choosing silence as your shield. When you speak about your goals too soon, you open the door to distraction. You invite feedback that isn't helpful. You give people permission to question what you're doing, not because they care about your success, but because they don't understand your vision. Even well-meaning people can slow you down by offering doubts, suggestions, or comparisons that have nothing to do with your path. That's why your goals are safest in silence, not hidden out of fear, but protected out of strength. Energy is limited. Every day you wake up with a certain amount of it, and how you spend it matters. Talking takes energy. Defending your ideas takes energy. Dealing with reactions takes energy. And if you give too much of that away before you've even taken your first step, you'll find yourself tired before the work begins. But when you keep your goals private, when you hold them close and nurture them in quiet, you keep your energy where it belongs, on the actions, not the explanations. There is power in keeping things to yourself. When you're not constantly explaining what you're doing, you give yourself the freedom to change, grow, and adjust without judgment. You're not boxed into someone else's idea of what your journey should look like. You can move faster. You can try and fail and try again without the noise of other people's reactions. That silence becomes a source of strength, a space where your purpose becomes clearer and your direction more focused. Keeping your goals private doesn't mean you're alone. It means you're selective. It means you understand that not everyone deserves access to your vision. Some people drain you just by listening without understanding. Others project their fear onto your ambition. And some will pretend to support you while secretly hoping you fail. This is not negativity. This is reality. And the more honest you are about it, the more committed you'll become to protecting what matters. Every meaningful goal you set requires energy, focus, and time, and that energy must be guarded like it's sacred. Because it is. That energy is what helps you stay consistent when no one's watching. It's what gets you through hard days when progress feels slow. It's what allows you to keep showing up, even when your confidence is shaken. If you give it away too easily, you won't have enough left to carry you through. And that's where most people fall short. They waste too much time trying to be understood when they should be building something that can't be ignored. If you truly believe in your goals, you won't need to talk about them. You'll wake up and take the next step. You'll put in the work. You'll keep showing up, not because anyone is watching, but because you know what you're building is real. That quiet belief is more powerful than any loud announcement. It doesn't ask for attention. It demands discipline. There's a peace that comes with working in silence. No judgment, no pressure, no noise, just you and your goal. Every decision you make is for you, not for applause. Every step forward is rooted in commitment, not performance. And over time that quiet focus becomes a lifestyle. You begin to recognize distractions for what they are. You stop entertaining conversations that don't align with your direction. You stop seeking comfort in being understood. You find strength in simply doing the work. Your goals are yours. They're personal. They came from your experiences, your pain, your vision, your hunger. No one else can fully grasp what they mean to you. And that's why you don't need to convince anyone of their value. You just need to protect them. Let them grow. Feed them with your effort. Water them with your discipline. And keep the world out of the process until the results are strong enough to speak for themselves. There's a certain freedom in privacy. You're free to learn without shame. Free to fail without judgment. Free to grow without interruption. And when you remove the pressure of having to perform for others, you begin to do your best work. Not because someone is watching, but because it matters to you. That kind of motivation is pure. It lasts longer. It burns deeper. The world doesn't need to know what you're doing until it's done. Your progress will be noticed eventually. But don't build with that in mind. Build because you believe in it. Build because it matters. Build because it helps you become who you were meant to be. And when you protect your energy by keeping your goals private, you'll start to feel something shift. You'll feel stronger, clearer, calmer, because you've taken back control. You're no longer depending on external validation to keep going. You're depending on your discipline. People will ask you what you're working on. They'll ask what's next. You don't owe them details. You owe yourself progress. You can respond with simplicity. I'm working on something important. That's enough. Your life is not a performance. Your growth is not a public event. Keep it sacred. Keep it focused. Keep it yours. In a world that rewards oversharing, privacy becomes a form of power. When everyone is shouting about what they're doing, those who are quietly doing the work stand out. Not with words, but with results, with presence, with impact. Your discipline will speak for you. Your focus will create outcomes that silence any doubt. And your quiet path will lead to loud success. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it. Protecting your energy is not a suggestion. It's a requirement. It means you say no to conversations that pull you away from your direction. It means you stop wasting your strength trying to prove something. It means you understand that not every thought needs to be spoken, and not every goal needs to be shared. Keep your circle tight. Keep your vision close. Keep your fire lit, and let your actions tell the story when the time is right. This is how you win. Not by showing everyone the plan, but by showing them the result. Not by telling them what you're building, but by becoming undeniable. That journey starts with silence. It is powered by focus, and it is protected by your decision to keep your goals private until the world can see them without explanation. Chapter 3. Train your mind daily through focused and silent work. If you want to master your life, you must begin by mastering your mind. The way you think shapes everything you do. Every choice, every response, every decision begins as a thought. But most people allow their minds to run without structure, discipline, or control. They react without reflection. They seek comfort over clarity. They consume more than they create. That's not a path to strength. That's a path to confusion and regret. Training your mind every day through focused and silent work is not optional. It is essential if you want to grow with purpose and live with direction. This kind of training doesn't happen in public. It's not loud. It's not glamorous. No one applauds you for sitting in silence and sharpening your attention. No one congratulates you for choosing concentration over distraction. But these quiet hours are where real transformation happens. When you sit down and give your full attention to one task, one practice, one discipline, you begin to strengthen the most important muscle you have, your mind. You don't need a perfect environment to start. You don't need special tools or advanced strategies. You just need to choose focus over noise. Every time you choose a meaningful task and stick with it until completion, you train your brain to stay grounded. Every time you resist the temptation to check something, scroll something, or multitask, you strengthen your ability to stay present. Over time, this becomes a habit, and from that habit, your clarity grows. Training your mind requires patience and consistency. You won't see instant results. That's why most people give up. But if you stay committed, even for short, focused periods each day, you will start to notice changes. You'll become less reactive. You'll feel less overwhelmed. You'll begin to think with more sharpness and act with more confidence. Silent work teaches you how to lead yourself before you try to lead anything else. Focused work is not about being busy. It's about choosing one meaningful task and giving it your full attention. Whether it's reading a page, writing a journal entry, solving a problem, or building a skill, the task itself doesn't matter as much as your level of presence. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your results. And if you can train yourself to be fully engaged, even in small tasks, you're laying the foundation for deeper and stronger thinking. This isn't something you do once in a while. It must be a daily discipline. Every morning, every evening, or whenever your mind is most open, This is the time to return to your focus. It doesn't matter if it's 15 minutes or an hour. What matters is that you show up for it. That you build the habit of working in silence, undisturbed and undistracted. The more consistent you are, the more natural it becomes. Silent work reveals what you're capable of when you're not performing for others. It shows you how much you can create when you stop seeking validation. You start to realize that the noise of the world is not where progress lives. Progress lives in the moments where no one sees you, but you keep showing up anyway. You learn to respect the process, not just the outcome. You begin to enjoy the work for what it is, not for what it might get you. Most people avoid silence because it forces them to face their thoughts. It reveals the discomfort they've been avoiding. But this is exactly where the power lies. When you can sit with your thoughts, understand them and guide them, you are no longer a prisoner to them. You're in control. You're able to pause before reacting, to think before speaking, to plan before acting. This kind of control doesn't come from reading about focus. It comes from practicing it daily. Discipline of the mind leads to discipline in every other area of your life. When your thinking becomes sharper, your actions become cleaner. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop needing permission to do what you know you should. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your purpose. You learn to direct your thoughts, and that direction leads to action, and that action leads to change. Focused work builds resilience. It teaches you how to keep going when motivation fades. It helps you build trust with yourself because you've proven that you can sit with a task and finish it. In a world full of distraction, this is rare, and that's why it's powerful. You can separate yourself from the average by doing what they won't, staying quiet, staying focused, and staying committed. You don't need to tell people how disciplined you are. You don't need to announce that you're working hard. Just do the work. Let the results speak later. For now, it's about building strength where no one sees. It's about becoming better in silence, so when the moment comes to act, you are ready. There's nothing more powerful than someone who trains daily, in silence with full intention. Focused and silent work also helps you hear your own thoughts clearly. Without noise, without outside input, you begin to discover what really matters to you. You start to understand what you truly want, not what the world expects from you. This clarity is priceless. It protects you from chasing empty goals. It grounds you in something deeper than approval. It gives you a reason to wake up each day with purpose. The more time you spend in focused work, the more your standards rise. You begin to expect more from yourself, not in a way that creates pressure, but in a way that builds self-respect. You want to keep going because it feels good to do what you said you would. You want to grow because you've tasted what progress feels like. You want to train harder, not because you need to prove anything, but because you've started to value what that process gives you. This isn't about perfection. Some days you'll struggle. Some days your mind will wander. That's normal. What matters is that you return. Over and over again you bring your mind back to the task. That simple act is the training. You don't need to force it. You just need to show up and give your full effort. Over time your capacity expands. You get better at holding your focus. You start to crave the silence because it becomes your source of strength. You have more control than you think. Your mind is not fixed. It can be trained, but only if you're willing to give it time, patience, and effort. Each day you choose silence over noise, focus over distraction, and commitment over comfort. You take one more step toward mastery. And this mastery will show itself not in your words, but in the way you move through life, with calm, with purpose, and with unshakable discipline. Chapter 4. Strengthen your self-worth by working without validation. Most people spend their lives trying to feel good about themselves through the eyes of others. They chase compliments, approval, and recognition, hoping that someone else's opinion will give them a sense of worth. But self-worth built on validation is fragile. It changes with every comment, every glance, every reaction. One moment of praise lifts you up. One word of doubt pulls you down. That is not confidence. That is dependence. If you want to be truly strong, you must build your self-worth by doing the work for yourself, not for attention. Real confidence begins the moment you stop asking for it. When you choose to show up fully without needing to be seen, you start to understand the value of your own effort. You don't need to tell anyone what you're building. You don't need applause to stay committed. You don't need eyes on you to know that your progress matters. The more you learn to work without seeking validation, the more powerful you become. Because then your strength isn't borrowed, it's owned. The world conditions people to believe that worth must be proven, achievements must be shared, struggles must be broadcast, progress must be displayed. But what if you didn't follow that path? What if you did the work quietly, for the sake of becoming better, not for the reaction it might bring? You'd be free, free from comparison, free from judgment, free from the exhausting need to prove that you matter. That kind of freedom gives birth to a deeper kind of self-respect. Self-worth does not come from being better than someone else. It comes from being better than the version of you who made excuses yesterday. When you take action because it aligns with your values, not because it will be seen, you begin to build a life based on inner stability. You wake up and do what matters, not because someone will notice, but because you've made a quiet decision to rise above who you used to be. And that commitment, made in silence, is worth more than 1,000 compliments. Validation feels good, but it's temporary. It fades. You get the praise, then it's gone. You post the success, then the likes stop. And when the silence returns, so does the doubt. This cycle keeps people stuck, chasing external approval just to keep feeling enough. But when you break that cycle, when you prove to yourself that you can work through discomfort, build through setbacks, and keep going without recognition, you create something permanent. You build trust with yourself. Working without validation is not easy. You'll be tempted to share everything. You'll want people to notice how hard you're trying. You'll feel the urge to explain yourself. But when you hold back, when you choose to stay silent and grounded, you discover something rare. You begin to feel proud, not from others' reactions, but from your own consistency. And that kind of pride doesn't fade. It stays with you. It becomes part of who you are. Your self-worth grows every time you follow through on your word. Not when someone praises you, but when you quietly do what you promised yourself. When you show up for your routine. When you finish the project. When you stay focused even when no one is watching. These are the moments that shape your confidence. Not because they're visible to others, but because they mean something to you. You don't need to talk about your goals to believe in them. You don't need feedback to validate your direction. All you need is daily effort, deliberate, honest, and persistent. Over time, your results will speak louder than any announcement. And the best part is, by then, you won't even feel the need to speak. Because you'll already know your worth, with or without recognition. The problem with validation is that it teaches you to perform instead of grow. You start doing things that look good instead of doing things that make you good. You choose appearance over improvement. But improvement often looks boring from the outside. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It doesn't impress in the short term. But in the long term, it builds something no performance ever could. real strength. When you remove the audience, you remove the pressure to pretend. You stop worrying about how things look, and you focus on how things feel. You stop filtering your journey, and start respecting your progress. You make space to grow slowly, patiently, deeply. This kind of growth may not be glamorous, but it lasts, because it's built on truth, not on image. You are not your performance. You are not your resume. You are not your follower count. You are not the praise or criticism you receive. You are what you repeatedly do in private. The work you do when no one is looking. That's who you are. That's where self-worth is born. Not in noise, but in silence. Not in applause, but in effort. When you no longer rely on validation, your energy shifts. You stop trying to impress. You start trying to improve. You stop needing attention. You start creating value. And people will notice, not because you asked them to, but because results are hard to ignore. But even then, you won't care as much. Because you'll have already earned your own respect. The ability to build your life without applause is a rare skill. It makes you mentally unshakable. Because if your self-worth is built privately, no public opinion can destroy it. If you don't depend on praise to move forward, criticism can't hold you back. You become focused, calm and free. You don't need noise to feel important. You don't need attention to feel whole. You can still share your story. You can still celebrate your wins. But don't let validation become the reason you act. Let growth be the reason. Let integrity be the reason. Let discipline be the reason. The rest is extra. It's not required. What matters most is how you feel about your work when the world is quiet. Every day you work without recognition, you get stronger. Every day you choose silence over praise, you grow deeper. Every day you keep your head down and stay on your path. You build a kind of self-worth that no one can give you and no one can take away. That is the kind of confidence worth building. That is the kind of life worth living. Chapter 5. Choose growth over attention every single day. Most people live in a world where being noticed feels more important than becoming better. The need to be seen often outweighs the desire to improve. But attention doesn't create character. It doesn't sharpen discipline. It doesn't build skills or deepen wisdom. Growth is slow. Growth is unseen. Growth is often uncomfortable. But growth lasts and attention fades. When you begin to choose growth over attention every single day, you shift from chasing short moments of praise to building a lifetime of power. You step away from needing approval and start developing actual strength. Every time you focus on progress rather than performance, you step into a stronger version of yourself. You stop performing for the world and begin building for yourself. You stop asking what will get you the most reaction and start asking what will bring you the most growth. This change in mindset won't give you instant gratification, but it will give you something more important: ownership of your life. It's easy to do things that get noticed. It's harder to do things that actually improve you. That's why so many people stay stuck. They spend their days curating an image instead of building a life. They chase popularity over purpose. They want to be known before they've built anything worth knowing. But when you commit to growth, you learn to put your head down and work, whether anyone sees you or not. You learn to stay grounded in what matters, not in what trends. Real growth happens when no one is clapping. It happens when you quietly improve your habits, develop your discipline, and stay committed to your goals, even when they aren't flashy. It happens when you choose the long road, knowing it won't get you instant rewards, but will lead to a stronger foundation. Attention is a spotlight. It shines for a moment and then moves on. Growth is a root. It anchors you no matter what changes around you. To grow, you must be willing to go unnoticed. You must be willing to be overlooked while you're building. You must learn to value internal wins more than external praise. Growth asks you to look inward. It requires honesty with yourself. It calls you to do what's hard, not what's popular. And in the process, it transforms you into someone who doesn't just look strong, but actually is. When you focus on growth, your daily choices change. You stop wasting energy trying to impress people. You use that energy to improve your routines, sharpen your focus, strengthen your mindset. You start asking, what will help me evolve, instead of what will get attention. This question leads you to different actions. It leads you to wake up earlier, train with more focus, read more intentionally, and build habits that align with your purpose, not with public expectations. You'll be tempted to trade growth for recognition. You'll have chances to chase likes instead of learning. You'll see people rise quickly on shallow effort, and you'll wonder if you're missing out. But attention gained without depth is fragile. The moment the crowd moves on, it all disappears. Growth may not be fast, but it is real. It builds something inside you that doesn't vanish when no one's watching. It stays. It supports you. It guides your decisions when everything else feels uncertain. To grow, you have to be patient. You have to be willing to work on the parts of yourself that don't get applause. You have to choose to improve your thoughts, your reactions, your daily systems, not because anyone's asking, but because you've decided to become better. Growth isn't always exciting, but it is always worth it. It gives you quiet victories. It gives you peace. It gives you the kind of strength that doesn't need to be announced. Attention feels good in the moment, but it can become a distraction. It can pull you off course. It can convince you that showing progress is the same as making progress. But the truth is, growth is built in silence, over time, through small and consistent efforts. It doesn't need to be posted. It doesn't need to be approved. It just needs to be done. And if you keep choosing it, day after day, it will change your entire life. When you choose growth, you become more stable. You stop being shaken by other people's opinions. You stop needing permission to evolve. You stop waiting for recognition and start creating your own standards. Growth teaches you to measure your success by your effort, your discipline, and your ability to keep going, especially when no one is cheering. Choosing growth is about choosing yourself. It's about trusting that your future is worth the work, even if no one understands it yet. It's about showing up for your potential, even when the rewards aren't immediate. It's about becoming someone who leads by example, not by appearance. And in doing so, you develop a quiet kind of confidence that doesn't fade. Each time you say no to distractions and yes to personal progress, you prove to yourself that your path matters more than popularity. Each time you stick to your routine, instead of getting pulled into comparison, you gain power over your mind. Each time you focus on substance over style, you deepen your capacity to handle life. That's what real growth gives you: stability, depth, and strength. Attention might come, it might not. But that's not the goal. The goal is to look in the mirror and know that you are becoming the person you were meant to be. Not because the world clapped for you, but because you showed up for yourself. Because you kept going. Because you kept learning. Because you chose growth, not once, but every single day. The challenge is not in being noticed. The challenge is in being consistent without needing to be noticed. Can you keep growing without a spotlight? Can you keep building without applause? Can you stay committed when it's quiet? If you can, you will outlast everyone chasing attention, because they will stop when the crowd stops watching. But you won't. You'll keep going, because you weren't doing it for them. You were doing it for your future. And that's the difference. That's where power begins. That's how you become unstoppable. By choosing growth over attention not once, but again and again, until it becomes your way of life. Until you no longer seek to be seen. You seek to be solid. Until you no longer crave recognition. You crave improvement. Until you no longer perform. You build. And that choice, made daily, will take you farther than attention ever could. Chapter 6. Discipline your routine to support long-term success. Success that lasts is built quietly in the background through steady, disciplined routines. It doesn't come from bursts of excitement or random acts of motivation. It grows out of what you do consistently, especially on the days when you don't feel like doing anything. You don't need to force greatness. You just need to train yourself to keep showing up again and again with intention and discipline. When your routine becomes stronger than your mood, you become more stable than your circumstances. That's how you build a foundation that doesn't collapse when pressure hits. There is a difference between being busy and being disciplined. Many people fill their time with noise, distractions, and scattered efforts, yet they wonder why they feel stuck. Discipline is different. It brings structure, direction, and a quiet strength that grows over time. It's not loud, but it's powerful. It doesn't look dramatic from the outside, but inside it builds resilience, focus, and self-trust. A disciplined routine doesn't just organize your time. It sharpens your mind and prepares you for long-term success. Every time you follow through with your routine, you train your mind to believe in your ability to commit. You start relying less on motivation and more on structure. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it today?" And you begin living by a standard. That standard becomes your compass. It points you toward the life you want, even when the road gets uncomfortable. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, especially when it's inconvenient. That's when your growth begins to multiply. The people who succeed over the long run are not the ones who start with the most talent. They are the ones who refuse to quit. They wake up and stick to their principles. They create routines that support their purpose. They don't need to feel inspired every morning. They just get to work. They don't let excuses control their schedule. They take full ownership of their time. Over months and years, their quiet consistency becomes undeniable. That's the kind of success that doesn't fade. Discipline doesn't mean being perfect. It means choosing what matters most, again and again, even when distractions tempt you. It means organizing your days around your values. It means building habits that align with your future, not your impulses. Without a disciplined routine, your energy gets pulled in too many directions. You might work hard, but your efforts remain scattered. When you live without structure, you become reactive instead of intentional. But when your routine is strong, you begin every day with clarity and momentum. The hardest part is staying disciplined when no one is watching. That's where your character is built. That's where you prove to yourself that your goals matter more than your comfort. Anyone can follow a plan when they feel motivated. Real strength comes from sticking to it on the hard days. When your emotions fluctuate, your routine anchors you. When life gets chaotic, your habits protect your progress. When doubt creeps in, your structure gives you something to lean on. You don't need to force discipline. You need to design your environment so it supports your commitment. The small choices you make each day either bring you closer to your vision or push you further away. Waking up early, turning off distractions, prioritizing your work, training your body, fueling your mind, these actions compound over time. They may not seem impressive in the moment, but they quietly create a powerful momentum. If you stay consistent, your results will eventually speak louder than any explanation ever could. Success isn't a single decision, it's a pattern of behavior repeated long enough to become automatic. It's what you do when nobody's asking. It's how you use your time when there's no pressure. It's how you handle boredom, fatigue, and setbacks. Discipline means you no longer depend on ideal conditions to make progress. You've trained yourself to show up regardless. That mindset is rare, but it's what separates those who rise from those who stall. You won't always be excited to follow your routine, but the goal isn't excitement. The goal is progress. If you keep showing up, even without motivation, you build trust with yourself. That trust becomes your internal fuel. It reminds you that you are capable of following through. And every time you do what you said you would do, even when it's hard, you strengthen your foundation. People often want results without structure. They want success without the repetition. But without discipline, your efforts remain scattered. Without a system, your energy gets wasted. Discipline brings alignment. It turns vague intentions into clear actions. It turns desire into direction. It turns dreams into habits that guide your life. The key is to stop waiting for the perfect day and start building the routine that keeps you grounded every day. There will be moments when you feel like your efforts aren't paying off. You'll wonder if it's worth it. You'll question whether the quiet work is leading anywhere. That's when most people stop. That's when they break their pattern and return to comfort. But if you push through that moment, if you stick to your routine through doubt, you reach a level of mental toughness that very few people ever develop. You stop needing external proof and start trusting the process. That's where transformation happens. Long-term success isn't built by those who get everything right. It's built by those who don't stop. It's built by those who don't let temporary emotions decide permanent outcomes. If you fall off your routine, don't wait for the next Monday or the next month. Reset immediately. Recommit without hesitation. Every day is a new chance to practice discipline. Every morning is an opportunity to reinforce the habits that will shape your future. If you can build a routine that prioritizes growth, health, focus, and reflection, you will be prepared for anything life throws at you. You won't have to scramble when challenges appear. You'll already be steady because you've trained your mind to show up. You've taught yourself how to keep going. You've made discipline your default. You won't need to be rescued. You won't need constant encouragement. You'll know how to carry yourself through uncertainty. And in the end, you'll look back and see that every quiet decision, every early morning, every focused hour added up to something incredible. Not because it happened fast, but because it never stopped. That's the quiet strength of a disciplined routine. It builds a future you can count on. One day at a time. Chapter 7. Master your emotions by staying calm and quiet. Staying calm in a world that constantly tries to provoke you is a form of strength very few people ever develop. When you learn to remain steady while everything around you shifts, you begin to master yourself in a way that changes how you experience life. Emotional control isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about observing your emotions without becoming them. When you choose silence over reaction, clarity rises to the surface. You stop living as a slave to your impulses and start living as someone who owns every part of their response. Most people let their emotions drag them through life. They get angry and they speak without thinking. They get hurt, and they lash out. They feel rejected, and they retreat into self-doubt. Their emotions make their choices for them, and every time they react without awareness, they give their power away. Mastering your emotions isn't about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about creating space between the feeling and the reaction. In that space, you gain control. In that space, you can choose differently. Staying calm is not weakness. It's control. It's wisdom. It's choosing peace even when chaos tries to invite you in. You don't need to prove your strength with noise. You prove it by being grounded when others unravel. When you refuse to be pulled into every emotional storm, you become a person people trust. You become the steady presence in a room full of tension. That steadiness is not accidental. It comes from training your mind to pause, breathe, and wait before responding. It comes from choosing silence when your ego demands noise. The quiet person in the room is often the one who holds the most strength. Not because they don't feel, but because they don't allow feelings to control their direction. Emotions are information, not instruction. They reveal something, but they don't dictate what you must do next. Learning to pause before reacting allows you to see the full picture. It allows you to respond with purpose instead of regret. When you master this, people around you may not always understand your calm, but you'll understand your peace, and that's what matters. Every time you hold your reaction, you create power. Power over your anger, power over your fear, power over the need to be right or validated. That power begins to free you. You're no longer at the mercy of what others say or do. You don't flinch every time someone disrespects you. You don't explode because your expectations weren't met. Instead, you watch, you process, you move with intention. Emotional discipline makes you more effective in every part of life, your work, your relationships, your health. Because you're not reacting from a wounded place. You're responding from a centered place. You don't need to explain yourself every time someone misunderstands you. Silence can be a response. Calm can be an answer. Some people want a reaction from you just to feel powerful. When you give them nothing, their influence dies. When you remain composed, their chaos has nowhere to land. That is how you reclaim control over your life. Not by fighting every battle, but by choosing which ones are worth your energy, and letting the rest pass by without a word. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become deliberate. You don't stop feeling, but you stop allowing feelings to command your behavior. You learn how to sit with discomfort without acting out. You give yourself permission to observe before deciding. You don't rush to fix every misunderstanding. You allow time to reveal what's real and what isn't. Most conflict fades on its own when you stop feeding it. Most emotional drama dies when you refuse to participate in it. The world often rewards loudness, but lasting power belongs to those who master silence. It takes courage to stay quiet when provoked. It takes wisdom to listen more than you speak. It takes self-respect to walk away when your peace is being threatened. These are not passive behaviors, they are signs of growth. They show that you no longer need chaos to feel alive. You no longer need constant stimulation to feel valid. You've learned that your emotional stability is not something to gamble with. It is something to protect. You don't have to win every argument. You don't need to respond to every criticism. You don't have to match someone's energy just because they're trying to pull you down. Your energy is sacred. When you stay calm, you protect it. When you stay quiet, you preserve your focus. That is how you stay in control of your life. Not by reacting to every push, but by choosing when and where to place your energy with purpose. True strength isn't loud or aggressive. It's calm, it's quiet, it's steady, It's the person who sees through the noise and stays anchored. The one who listens to understand, not just to reply. The one who walks away with dignity instead of fighting for attention. The one who sees emotional chaos as a trap, not a challenge. When you live like this, your life starts to feel lighter. The weight of needing to be heard all the time disappears. The pressure to prove yourself fades. You find comfort in stillness. You find strength in restraint. No one can take your peace unless you hand it over. No one can throw you off track unless you let them inside your mind. You can live in a storm and remain untouched if your inner world is calm. That kind of calm takes work. It doesn't happen by accident. You have to practice it daily, through stillness, through meditation, through quiet reflection, through conscious breath, through walking away when your ego begs you to stay and fight, through choosing understanding over outrage. The world will always try to pull you into noise. You will be tested. You will be misunderstood. You will feel the urge to defend, to correct, to react. That's when you remind yourself that calm is your power. You don't need the last word. You don't need to be loud to be heard. Your presence speaks for itself. Your peace speaks louder than your explanations ever could. Each time you stay calm in the face of pressure, you strengthen the muscle of emotional mastery. Over time, it becomes your natural way of living. You move with more grace. You carry less emotional baggage. You stop expecting the world to give you peace because you've learned how to create it within yourself. That's what self-mastery looks like. That's what real power feels like. Quiet, strong, unshakable. Chapter 8. Track your progress privately and reflect every night. The work you do in silence is the most honest version of yourself. It's where the truth lives, away from the noise and the influence of others. At the end of the day, no matter what the world says, it's your own sense of progress that either lets you sleep peacefully or keeps your mind restless. That's why tracking your growth privately is so powerful. It removes the need to perform. It's not about impressing others. It's about staying aligned with your goals, your values, and your direction. There's something sacred about making progress without telling anyone. You don't need an audience. You just need intention. Every day you live, you are either moving closer to the person you want to become or further away. But without reflection, you won't know which direction you're headed. It's easy to stay busy. It's easy to be caught in motion. But motion without reflection often leads to exhaustion instead of evolution. That's why taking the time to track your steps matters. You pause, you look back, and you ask yourself, did I move with purpose today? Did I build something real? Or did I just react to life without thinking? Progress doesn't have to be loud. In fact, the most important kind is almost invisible to others. It happens quietly, in moments of discipline that no one sees. It shows up in small wins, in subtle choices, in the way you decide to keep going when you don't feel like it. When you track those moments, even privately, you remind yourself that you're growing, even when it doesn't feel like it. Growth isn't always visible in the mirror, but it becomes visible in your consistency. It builds slowly, silently, and then suddenly becomes undeniable. Reflection is how you stay grounded in truth. At the end of the day, when the world is quiet and it's just you and your thoughts, you get to ask the questions that really matter. Did I honor my time today? Did I take steps towards something meaningful? Was I present, or was I distracted? Did I speak with intention, or was I careless with my words? These questions are simple, but they reveal everything. They show you where you're aligned and where you've drifted. They guide you back to center. You don't need permission to measure your progress. You don't need to share it on social media or announce it to your friends. In fact, the more private your progress is, the more honest it becomes. It's not about image, it's about substance. When no one is watching, the only motivation left is the one that comes from within. That's the motivation that lasts. That's the drive that doesn't burn out. When applause fades, night is the best time to take inventory, not of what you achieved for others, but of what you accomplished for yourself. Did you keep your word to yourself today? Did you do the things you said you would? Did you face the discomfort you've been avoiding? Or did you distract yourself again, postponing the life you truly want to live? Reflection isn't meant to create guilt, it's meant to give clarity. It helps you identify patterns, correct mistakes, and keep momentum. Tracking your progress also teaches you patience, because when you keep a private record of your actions, you begin to understand how long real change takes. You stop expecting overnight results. You start appreciating steady effort. You notice how each day contributes to something larger. Even when progress feels slow, you can look at your notes, your journal, your quiet observations, and realize you're further ahead than you were last week, last month, last year. There's a strength in solitude when it comes to growth. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't need to convince anyone of your vision. You just keep working. You just keep refining. You just keep noticing the details. Some of the most valuable breakthroughs happen when no one's around. In the silence, you see yourself clearly, without pressure, without performance, just truth. Most people give up because they never learn how to reflect. They only focus on outcomes, and when outcomes don't come fast enough, they assume they're failing. But those who track their daily progress know better. They know every small step adds up. They understand that growth isn't always visible, but it's always happening if the work is consistent. They stay motivated, not because they're celebrated, but because they can see their own evolution. It's also important to reflect without judgment. Your goal isn't to punish yourself for what didn't go right, it's to learn. If you broke a promise to yourself today, write it down, ask why. Not with shame but with curiosity. What emotion did you avoid? What excuse did you accept? What belief held you back? This kind of awareness helps you grow faster than any motivational speech, because it forces you to face the reality of your choices, and that's where change begins. Private progress builds confidence. When you keep track of the promises you keep to yourself, you begin to trust yourself again. That trust becomes self-respect. You don't need others to validate you when you know who you are in private. You don't need to seek external reward when you already feel internal alignment. Confidence that comes from private victories is the kind that can't be shaken. Make reflection a ritual. It doesn't have to take hours. Just a few quiet moments before bed. A pen and paper. A few questions. A willingness to be honest. Did I grow today? Where did I shrink? What am I proud of? What will I do differently tomorrow? Over time, this habit sharpens your thinking. It strengthens your discipline. It deepens your self-awareness. It keeps your growth on track, even when life gets chaotic. Tracking and reflecting won't always feel exciting, but they're foundational. They keep you honest. They make your goals real. They remove the guesswork. Without them, you can drift for years and not realize it. With them, you move with clarity, even when progress is slow, even when no one is cheering. And that's the kind of growth that lasts. The quiet kind, the kind that doesn't need to be seen because it's being lived. Chapter 9. Focus only on action and ignore outside opinions. Every time you take action, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. And yet, so many people hesitate, not because they don't know what to do, but because they're afraid of what others might think. This fear doesn't come from logic. It's emotional. It's rooted in our need to be liked, to fit in, to avoid judgment. But that very fear is what stalls momentum and blurs focus. The more you listen to outside voices, the more you silence your own. The more you chase approval, the more you abandon your mission. Eventually, you forget why you started in the first place. To do anything meaningful, you have to train your mind to value movement over noise. You have to break the habit of explaining yourself. You don't owe the world a presentation every time you take a step forward. You don't need validation before you make progress. You don't need applause before you take action. The only thing that matters is whether or not you moved, whether or not you acted on what you knew was necessary, whether or not you honored your responsibility to your own future. Outside opinions are loud, but they are rarely rooted in your truth. They reflect other people's fears, biases, and insecurities. Most people aren't thinking about your growth. They're protecting their comfort. When you start to change, it disrupts the roles people have assigned you. That discomfort makes them speak louder, not wiser. And if you listen too closely, you'll start shrinking your goals to fit their expectations. That's how dreams die, not from lack of talent, but from the weight of outside opinions. You don't need to defend your vision to people who aren't building anything. It's better to act without announcement than to get stuck in debate with those who don't understand your path. Real focus is quiet. It doesn't waste time explaining strategy to spectators. It doesn't ask for permission to move forward. It just moves. It executes. It learns by doing, while others are talking, analyzing, and doubting. Focused people are building brick by brick. And over time, that silent work speaks louder than any argument ever could. There is peace in action. When you're immersed in doing, the noise fades. You stop overthinking. You stop waiting. You stop caring about opinions that have no investment in your life. You return to what's real: effort, discipline, results. You reconnect with the part of you that knows what matters and doesn't need to be reminded. You stop performing and start progressing. Opinions come and go. One day you're praised, the next you're criticized. If your direction depends on those fluctuations, you'll be constantly changing course, never staying consistent long enough to build anything lasting. The key is to anchor yourself in what you're doing, not how it's received. The most grounded people aren't the ones who are loud. They're the ones who keep showing up, no matter who's watching. They don't need a spotlight. They don't need a reaction. They just need the next step. And they take it. It's not arrogance to tune out distraction. It's survival. Your focus is finite. Your energy is limited. You can either use it to move forward, or you can waste it managing everyone else's thoughts about what you're doing. One path leads to growth. The other leads to burnout. If you want to build something that lasts, you have to protect your mind from becoming a battleground of opinions. You have to decide once and for all that you're here to move, not to please. People will always have something to say. Some will cheer, some will criticize, and most won't understand. But their understanding is not required for your success. Their approval is not the fuel you need. Your discipline is, your clarity is, your daily action is. That's where power comes from, not from being understood, but from being consistent. Every day you show up for your goals, without seeking praise, is a day you strengthen your core. It takes maturity to stop reacting. It takes strength to move in silence. It takes discipline to put your head down and do the work, even when it feels unnoticed. But that's where your edge is. That's where you gain momentum, because while others are distracted by feedback, you're focused on results. While others are watching the scoreboard, you're running laps. While they're talking, you're executing. And in the long run, execution wins. Even well-meaning opinions can become distractions. Friends, family, mentors, they may care, but they don't live your life. They don't carry your responsibilities. They don't feel the urgency that lives inside you. Only you know the weight of your dreams. Only you know the cost of delay. Only you will live with the consequences of inaction. That's why your job isn't to make everyone else comfortable. It's to keep yourself moving. Focus isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. Every time you sit down to work, you'll have a choice: listen to doubt or take the next step. Every time you post, share, or speak, you'll have a choice: perform for approval or return to purpose. The more you choose action, the less power outside noise holds over you. Eventually, you become immune, not because you don't care, but because you've learned that opinions are fleeting and results are what last. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to justify your pace, your path, or your passion. You just need to stay in motion. Progress doesn't require applause. Impact doesn't need explanation. What matters is that you're doing what's required, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when no one understands. That's how you build confidence. That's how you build strength. That's how you build a life that reflects your deepest values, not someone else's preferences. And if ever you feel discouraged, return to the basics. Remind yourself why you started. Remind yourself what's at stake. Remind yourself that your future depends on the action you take now, not on how many people approve, not on how many people notice. Stay rooted in the work. Stay committed to the process. Let your actions speak. Let your consistency be the loudest statement you make. That's the discipline, doing the work without needing the world to cheer. That's the mindset, choosing forward motion over outside approval. That's the goal, to become someone who can't be moved by noise, because they're too focused on movement. Keep your head down, keep your heart in it, and keep going. Chapter 10. Celebrate results with humility and inspire through action. The most powerful people are not the ones who constantly remind the world of what they've done. They are the ones whose actions speak so clearly that words are no longer necessary. When your results begin to show, when your effort finally breaks through the surface, you'll be tempted to celebrate in a way that draws attention. You'll want to show everyone how far you've come, how much you've grown, how much you've accomplished. That's natural. But true strength lies in restraint. Real power is not proven through noise, it is shown through example. Humility is not denying your success. It's simply refusing to make it a performance. You don't need to turn your progress into a spectacle to make it meaningful. What matters most is that you stayed the course, did the work, and delivered. That's the victory. Not how loud the celebration is, but how deeply rooted your transformation has become. When you lead with humility, your success becomes more than a personal achievement. It becomes a quiet invitation for others to rise, not a billboard for recognition. You must understand that people aren't inspired by bragging. They're moved by integrity. They're not drawn to those who constantly speak of their own wins, but to those who uplift through quiet consistency. To celebrate with humility means you respect the journey that brought you here. It means you acknowledge that while you may have moved forward, the road was built with sacrifice, focus, and repeated effort. Humility allows you to remember what it cost, and that memory keeps you grounded. When others see someone who doesn't need to shout, who doesn't compete for the spotlight, but still manages to rise, it changes them. It shows them what's possible without pressure. It opens their eyes to the idea that success doesn't need to be loud to be real. In fact, the most lasting forms of success are often the quietest. They are built behind the scenes, away from validation, in the privacy of daily decisions. And when they finally emerge, they speak louder than any self-promotion ever could. This mindset separates those who seek attention from those who seek impact. The ones who crave praise often burn out quickly because their motivation depends on being seen. But those who act from inner purpose, who are satisfied simply by fulfilling their potential, they endure. They don't need to be reminded of their value, they know it. And because they know it, they don't need to announce it. When you succeed, remember to give credit to discipline, to consistency, and to the lessons learned in silence. Because that's what built you, not the praise of others. Not the applause, but the unglamorous work you did when no one was watching. Let that truth keep you steady. Let it remind you that real results are earned, not given, and that they don't require a stage to matter. There is a kind of leadership that doesn't speak, but still guides. It's the leadership that comes from showing what's possible through personal responsibility. When you become someone who celebrates quietly and keeps building, others notice, even if you're not trying to be noticed. Your actions become a silent standard. Your work ethic becomes a source of motivation. Your journey becomes proof that consistency is stronger than hype. You don't need to post every win. You don't need to share every milestone. You can acknowledge your progress internally, take a moment to be grateful, and then return to the process. Because success isn't a final destination. It's a continuous unfolding. If you stop to bask in every achievement, you may forget that the path ahead still requires your focus. Humility allows you to keep moving. It reminds you that every win is simply a checkpoint, not the finish line. And when others ask how you did it, you don't need to speak in grand terms. You don't need to pretend it was effortless. You can simply tell the truth. It took time, it took patience, and it took work. That honesty is more inspiring than any dramatic story. People connect to what's real. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for evidence that progress is possible. When you share your journey with sincerity, without trying to impress, it becomes a mirror for others to believe in their own potential. There is great peace in knowing that you don't have to prove yourself to anyone, that your results are enough, that your effort already speaks volumes. When you live from that place, your energy shifts. You stop comparing. You stop trying to stay ahead in someone else's race. You start focusing only on what matters, continuing to grow, continuing to serve, continuing to build. That's the rhythm that sustains long-term success. The truth is, people don't remember what you said about your journey. They remember what your journey said about you. They remember how you carried yourself. They remember how you treated others while you were rising. They remember whether you used your platform to elevate or to dominate. They remember the humility, the character, and the silent strength behind your progress. Celebrate in ways that nourish you, not in ways that exhaust you. Quiet reflection, gratitude, and recommitment are more powerful than public displays of pride. Let the inner satisfaction of growth be enough. Let it fill you in a way that no outside praise ever could. Because when you celebrate in silence, you deepen your commitment. You honor the process. You build stability that won't crumble under pressure. Let your success be a light, not a spotlight. Let it guide others forward, not blind them with your ego. Inspire by doing. Teach by example. Encourage by showing what's possible, not by demanding attention. When people see that you've achieved something and still remain grounded, still remain focused, still remain kind, that's when you leave a lasting impact. That's when you show others that it's not just about what you build, but how you carry it. Stay humble. Stay focused. Keep building. Let the work be enough. Let your growth speak. And when others see what you've done, may they feel not envy, but hope. May your journey remind them that greatness isn't in being noticed, it's in being real. Keep inspiring by living it, not by announcing it. Keep leading with quiet strength, and you'll never need to ask for respect. You'll earn it through every action every day.